role of women progressed out of the household and into public life. This is known as maternal commonwealths. Women got higher education and wanted to put it to use. Twice the number of women attended college in 1910 than in 1870. Those who did attend college could be found in management positions. Those who didn't go to college mostly worked traditional jobs like teachers, nurses, phone operators, secretaries, clerks, and saleswomen. Though these opportunities for women were improving, many were still confined to the house with domestic roles. Many women who were confined to domestic roles fought for the temperance movement. Women wanted prohibition of alcohol because men were constantly drinking, which was expensive and caused domestic violence. Groups like the Women's Christian Temperance Union and the Anti-Saloon League were created to support the movement. Bans were eventually passed restricting alcohol, which angered men.
Women's social spheres have changed a lot over time. Republican motherhood meant that women's social spheres should revolve around men. This idea was mostly used throughout the American Revolution. This changed the cult of domesticity when reinforced the idea that the women should stay around the house and not do work outside the home. However, society's views of women changed with the Gibson girl. The Gibson girl was portrayed as the ideal look for a woman. These images were often used in advertisements and inspired women to want higher wages. Despite this, women were still paid roughly half the wage of men, even in equal positions.
Women were strong advocates for blacks' rights and were deeply offended when women were left out of the 15th Amendment. This frustration inspired them to come together and form associations like the Women's National Suffrage Association. Since states could decide whether or not women could vote, states in the North and South placed restrictions on women's voting rights. States in the West eventually allowed them to vote, but mainly for the sake of attracting people to their towns. They were not all allowed to vote until the 19th Amendment that was passed in 1920.
Jane Addams founded the Hull House, which eventually expanded to take over a whole block in Chicago. Immigrants, both children and adults, received an education and learned about basic skills of life. The extremely successful Hull House became the center of the Chicago neighborhood. Emily Dickinson, though not published until after her death, broke the laws of poetry by writing about love, separation, death, nature, and God. Her works and influence are still present today. Kate Chopin, another author, also inspired other women to write. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was involved in abolitionist movements before the Gilded Age, helped organize the world's first women's rights convention in 1848, and formed the National Women's Loyal League with Susan B. Anthony in 1863. 7 years later, she was a part of the National Women's Suffrage Association. Carrie Chapman Catt helped bring equal rights to all citizens. She was president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association from 1900 to 1904 and 1950 to 1920. She also formed the League of Women Voters. Charlotte Perkins Gilman wrote Women in Economics, which argued against women's economic dependence on men. Victoria Woodhull was the first woman to address a congressional committee and once said, "The citizen who is taxed should also have a voice in the subject matter of taxation." All in all, women's roles were improving throughout the Gilded Age, but still had a long way to go.